Friends, once more, right? Yeah. My teacher in my PG gave me an advice. He told, if you ever become a teacher and talking like this, never address a gathering before lunch. This is most important, because they will all be very eager to have lunch rather than listen to. And he also told me never address the gathering after lunch, because they will all be drowsy and sleeping. And anyhow, so I have to break his advice. Now in this an hour or so, we will look at caste as a social capital. Caste, the word itself will be, some people will immediately find it, what is this, and not acceptable. And we find, as after all my research and other thing, there are two factors which are most important in the economic development of our country. One of them is, I told you, housewives, whose saving is the one which is propelling this economic growth. The second is caste. But for caste, we would not have got so much amount of economic development. Take my word for it. It's a caste in a, we will explain what we are talking about as a social capital. Many of you may or may not be knowing, caste is not a Indian word or English word even. It's a Portuguese word. Portuguese use the word caste, casta. It is actually in their Spanish language. When they sent people for conquering the Latin American countries, those who conquered, those who went and did battle and other thing, and they have used it in India, and British used it as caste, and we have accepted it, and we continue to use. Traditionally, we use the word varna or jati. These are our words in India, and till 1881 census of British, that's the first census done in India ever, 1881. Till 1881 census, there was no hierarchy in caste. Most important thing to remember. We always had caste throughout history, no denial of that. We used to call it jati. But there was no 1, 2, 3, 4 classification. Only in 1881 census, British created this 1, 2, 3, 4. And not only that, they didn't have proper numbers for in the 1881. So what they did was, in 1891 census, they told the enumerator, you put caste for everyone. They gave the power and permission to the enumerator. So if enumerator finds somebody is slightly tall with a mush and other thing, he will put, okay, he is Kshatriya, Rajput, tick. If somebody is very, slightly fat and very cheerful, you would say, okay, he is Vaishya, tick. So like that they were doing. You believe me, sir? In the first census of 1881, there were huge number of castes in which there were only 1 members. In the set theory notion, it was a set of single element, ek number. Not many were, but British somehow felt we must create 4-fold classification in India. There only there will be possibility of dividing and conflict and other thing. And their explanation is, in Britain we have 4 categories: ICS, that is the topmost civil servant, middle level officers, clerks and peons. So same way we want to create in India. So most important to recognize, the first vertical classification was 1881 by the British. Prior to that there was no vertical. Prior to that there were many castes, but all were in very jumbled up fashion. Nothing called, some are horizontal, some are, That is the first thing which we should recognize. Second is, of course this caste thing itself, I got interested because I went to a town called Tirupur, very near to Coimbatore, which is one of the largest knitted garment exporter in the world actually. And that Tirupur town was not so well known in the 60s or 50s or 60s. 70s it started developing, and it became such a, today I don't recollect exact number, something like 15 to 60,000 crore at least minimum they would be exporting. There are individual partnership firms which are having turnover of 1200, 1300 crores from there. So, when I was looking at it, they were originally agriculturist, it's a agriculture area, drought prone area actually. Then there was a major drought in the earlier part of last century, and some of them decided to migrate to other towns and other things. Then somebody got some knitting machine, and then they knitted some fabrics, the undergarment, banyan and underwear, and locally distributed. It became a sort of a popular thing. Then they decided, why don't we go more into this, because after all we are facing this problem in agriculture, off and on, it's not a rain fed area, so then it slowly developed. So when I did the study, I found that it's a community called Gounders actually. The currently Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu comes from that community, and they actually were the initial pioneers in this. So the advantages were in terms of provision of initial capital, that was not coming from financial institution, it primarily came from the family, extended family and community. Then risk mitigation, another thing. If somebody doesn't succeed, then he is helped actually, he is not castigated or anything. Third is risk mitigation in terms of return of funds. Because of the community, there was a lot of pressure within the group to return the money. NPA was very low, non-performing assets of the loans which are given were promptly. Then skill development within the community. The market access, for instance, some of them exporting. I met one of the exporter who was those days having a turnover of 700 crores Indian rupee. But if you look at him, he is very simple person with a dhoti, and he will not think that he is such a business tycoon. He was coming from Paris actually. So he was coming in first class in Air France. I was coming in one of those cattle class or just last. So I was talking to him. He knows only Tamil. I asked him, how you manage in France with only, you don't know English? And he told me nicely, Professor, in France also they don't know English, so it doesn't matter. So that was a very good response. He was telling that time Bulgaria, Romania, so many other countries also, market is expanding. They were requiring he said that I have given that to my other people in my community. I asked him, why are you not going there? He said, no, the new markets I would like others to take care of it. I have enough market in Germany, France, and so the market access is something very, very important or interesting. Then trained labor they are able to get from their villages, train them. What we call child labor, actually it is a not correct word to use, it's actually trainees who later set up their own shop, their own business establishment. So I did a sort of small study. I found, for most of them were 8th failed, 9th passed type of thing, very less than school final actually, but great entrepreneurs. And that time I realized that if you are highly educated, you cannot be a great entrepreneur, because you cannot take risk. Risk taking and education are inversely related. Let us be very clear. You understand, inversely related means if you are highly educated, you begin to analyze, you begin to worry, you begin to create models, and then you don't start any business. You think it is okay. If you are 8th class, you just jump into the water. You don't, you take phenomenal amount of, So risk taking and education education actually reduces your capability to take risk. That is most important. Education actually makes you, thinker, make you analyzer and other thing. Not a action oriented man or something. Anyhow, so quite a large number of them were 8th or 9th class only, not more than that. Now some of their children are doing management and all those things, abroad and comes back and other thing. So that 2002 World Bank World Development Report allocated a page on this community, how the Tirupur garment industry developed due to caste relationship. Then I went to another adjacent place called Sivakasi actually. Then that was another interesting thing. It is a center of manufacturing of matchboxes and firecrackers for the whole country actually today, and including the printing. Again there it's a drought prone area, and in the 30s some small group of people and the community known as Nadars there. So they went to Calcutta. In those days Calcutta used to be a major center of employment and other thing. We are talking about 30s and 40s. They joined Vimco factory. They understood some of the processes and other thing, and then after a couple of years they came back, bringing with them some small hand holding machines and other. They started making this matchboxes, and then it has become a huge flourishing, and then over a period of time that community at once upon a time in the 30s used to be one of the most economically not well performing community in Tamil Nadu. Today they are one of the most flourishing community actually. Nadars are in these businesses, and now they have gone into retail trade and gold selling and so many other things. So I was just thinking, what is the nature of the parameters which is helping these people as a group, and this is always derided. Caste mean immediately people think that in political terms, they do not realize that. Then I realized caste in business unites, caste in politics divides. This is something I learnt in the process of my work. I was in US, then I saw in the west coast of US, most of you would have heard about it, there are small hotels called motels, and most of it nowadays they are called patels actually, they are not even called motels. Patels, because most of them are owned by patels, small inns or what you may loosely call, a couple of 15-20 rooms and managed by his mother or his mother-in-law or sister-in-law, family managed actually. Some relatives will be there and other. One interesting thing, interacting with them, I found significant number of them are Patels from this part of the country, right? And most of them are, we have, I think, Kadua Patels and we have Levu Patel. Many of them are Levu Patel. That also they are very proud of telling that we are. Right? Am I any problem? Nothing, right? They were telling that. Very interesting actually. Then I was in Antwerp, one of the diamond centers in Belgium. For some, I didn't go to buy diamond, don't mistake me by any chance, right? I just went for a seminar, professors can maximum do that only. So we did that, and then I was staying in a small inn or motel type of place. I came down and I saw a board there called Jain Meals. I was surprised because veg, non-veg I can understand, even those boards are not there in Europe. It is assumed you are non-veg. But Jain meal is something which is intriguing. So a professor cannot keep quiet also. So he is curious. So I went and asked the owner of the, why is this Jain? He said many of our customers are Jains. Then I understood that diamond trading center, significant portion of it is controlled by Palanpur Jains and Leua Patels. Again, it's very interesting actually. They would constitute, I think, 0.00001% in India, right? And in those days, one of the financial paper wrote, Jews used to have dominant role in Antwerp diamond center. Jews used to control something like 70-75%. So that financial paper told that this is the first time in business Jews have been defeated by Jains without violence, most important, without violence. Throughout history Jews have been defeated by violence, they were attacked, they were killed, they were all persecuted, but these people came and quietly took over the business because of their business acumen and knowledge and other. Very interesting, such a substantial thing. How it came is again within community support, capital being provided by the community and local regulations being told to each other by word of mouth. Otherwise, if you employ lawyers and chartered accountants, it will cost you phenomenally actually. But your own community people help you to learn what is happening there. And I was meeting another gentleman who is also owning large amount of motels and hotels there. He's got also one university in Surat. Some of you would have heard about it, Oro University, Auroville. How many of you have heard about it, sir? Some people, okay, not very bad. So he was, Mr. Rama, he was talking to me. He told an interesting thing. Approximately, I don't remember the exact number, roughly 76 to 77,000 units are there in US of these different, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star hotels, different types. Roughly 30,000 are owned by Indians. Something phenomenal actually, of different types, not. Of that, most interesting is 28 to 29,000 is owned by people 30 kilometer perimeter of Surat. Surtians own 28,000 units in US. Unbelievable number actually. That is the extraordinary economic. And again, when you analyze, you find that the community has played a very major role in terms of initial capital provision, in terms of access to the market, having good amount of coordination, and many of them coming from drought prone area in agriculture, in the sense of not that everybody was coming from great metropolitan situation or anything. So all this made me wonder, what is that role of caste or community? So that is what I started doing my research. Incidentally, 1881, 1891, 1931 was the last caste census done in India, 1931. After that, we have not done any caste census at all. Caste census means how many people belonging to, say, Nadars, how many people belonging to, say, Yadavs, how many belong to Jats, how many belong to Patels. We don't have any number. All discussion on caste numbers are just what I call POTA data, pulled out of thin air, we just say, oh, Patels are 40% of population here, what is the basis? Everybody says so, I will also join and say, that's all. Actual numbers are not there after 1931. And the Mandal Commission in 1980, they used 1931 data to decide about reservation for the backward caste. Very interesting. 1931 was the only data available. 1941 census was not conducted by the British government properly, because during Second World War they didn't want to spend all the resources in doing this census. And 1951 that column was removed, caste column, by Jawaharlal Nehru, because he told that we have become casteless. So casteless society was declared, not that we have become casteless, it was told that we are, so no more caste census was conducted. So when there was a demand for this additional reservation other than SC/ST, so this Mandal Commission was constituted, which used 1931 data. Kindly remember, it's a pro rata data, that is 1931 so many let's say Yadavs were there out of so much population. So 1981 also it was assumed the same proportion was, so and it was multiplied with the current pop and then told okay. So based on this the number, and Supreme Court later told it should not exceed 50%. That was the sort of a condition imposed by the court. But that has been exceeded by many state governments. A lot of cases are going on. But the fact of the matter is, after 1931, we don't have proper numbers. So in 2011, actually, we had a census. Along with that, we collected this caste data, not as part of the census, but as part of the what is being now debated heavily, national register, for which extra data was collected that time. The same thing is opposed by many political parties today who supported that in 2011, on the basis of which the data was about so many social parameters also it was collected in terms of people having refrigerator, people having this car, economic condition, and caste was one of the factors. But very interesting, 33 million households were covered, 330 million, 33 crore households were covered in India in that census, and ended up with 4.6 million caste entities in the country. That means as per that 2011, we have 4.6 million, which means on an average 72 households used a phrase for one caste. That is, for one caste, how many households? 72 households. So each, because identification of caste is not an easy thing, right? In outside, people talk in politics about Patel being a caste, but if you actually go, you will find so many Patels. Within Patel, you have Kadwa Patel, Leva Patel. Within Leva Patel, you have got another. There are 404 Jat categories in the country. 404. All of them are Jats only. So for political purposes, because democracy implies votes, election, these aggregation has taken place. What one can call, new caste. If you go back in history, around 1960, there was no caste as Jats. Individuals were, subcaste were asserted, and then, but slowly over period, we began to have Yadavs, Jats, Patels, like that one caste has been, so that you get more voting in terms of people. The larger the aggregation, the better for the group which is aggregating it. So this 330 million with 4.6 million entries, so that ambitious plan, and there were something like 67 million of that was doubtful. That is, how do you fill up the form? How much? Many of the castes were not in proper order. There were not, for instance, in Karnataka there is a huge debate about NAIK and NAYK are not same. NAIK is one group, NAYK is another. So when it is translated from Tulu or Kannada and then into English, it depends how it is done. Depending upon that, you get 2 promotion or you don't get any promotion. So this is most important. One letter can make your entire life different. So there were something like 67 million cases were to be rectified of this enumeration. This job was given to Niti Aayog, which has kept it in the freezer, which has kept it in the drawer, that we will have to look into it, because it is not an easy task. So that is a central census. Then in Karnataka there was huge amount of clamour in my state for a caste census. This is 2017, not very far, last year before. So there was huge amount of demand that we must find out, because it is traditionally believed that Linkayat and Okkaligas, 2 castes, you might have heard about them, or I do not know. These 2 are supposed to be the major caste. Others are, so always the chief minister will be from either Linkayat group or from Okkaliga group. So this is the sort of arrangement. When they did the census, and Karnataka has got a reasonably good infrastructure, they have collected good data on socio-economic condition and other thing earlier. So when they did the census, the results were totally different than what they thought would be the situation. They found out that SCs make 20% roughly, and Muslims make something like 17%. So 20 plus 17, 37, plus other smaller castes another some 10%. So it comes to 47. So actually Linkayats do not make up what you call as high as it was felt, they make up only around 14%. Okkaligas were 10%. So what they have done is they have kept it into the dabba, and they are not, nobody wants to release it now. So because the actual numbers are totally different than what is popularly known. Point I want to stress is most of the discussion on caste is without having any numbers. Yes, your guess is as good as mine. In one TV debate I remember one person told Yadavs are 40% in this area. And I was also puzzled, how does he know, right? After he came out I asked him, how do you know, he told, no sir, the anchor, the person who is moderating the discussion is a Yadav, so I thought I will just tell this, so he is also happy. That's all. There is no other what you call reason or. So first point you should recognize or you should remember is we don't have any data. That's all. We should recognize that, right? Second is, Sardar Patel who comes from this part of the country, you should know 543 or so samasthanas or rather kingdoms he merged in order to create our India. I think all of you would be definitely aware of it, right? We have a huge statue also of him now in Gujarat, right? Sardar Patel, everybody would have heard about it, even though when I talked about Aurobindo, not many have heard about him, but Sardar Patel, right? Interestingly, out of these 540, all of them were ruled by SC, ST or OBCs. Every kingdom was ruled by SC, ST. 3 of them were ruled by Muslims. All others were SC, ST or OBC. No kingdom was ruled by so-called other communities. No. So very interesting actually. India is the only country where the erstwhile rulers of the country all got reservation in post-independence India. No other country actually, the previous rulers would not be eligible for, but that is how the interesting way democracy functions. In terms of numbers, right, all were SC, ST and OBCs. And the second is, East caste is a sampradaya. Kindly remember, it is not just like that caste you can. Sampradaya would mean each caste which I have studied well have got huge amount of what one can call methods of doing things. See for instance Namakarnam. All castes don't name the child at birth itself. Some name it after 1 year, some name it after 5 months, I am talking about all India. Some name it after 6 months. So very interesting. Some name it on the 10th day. At least one group I know name it after 1 year. They tell the registrar, this is the name you prepare, but we will take it only after 1 year. Because 1 year only, later only they prepare the kundli. So as per that only they will. And the same thing Mundakam. All of them don't do Mundakam at the same. Some do it after 1 year. Some do it after 6 months. Some do it in the odd months. There is nothing good or bad about it. This is purely their convention or custom which is coming from the particular caste. Now the question is, similarly betrothal, similarly marriage, similarly death ceremonies. Some do up to 13 days, some do up to 10 days only. In Tamil Nadu, some castes do up to 6 days only. 7th day is completed. Then some people carry it for 1 year in terms of not visiting functions and temples and other things. Some don't visit functions and temple only for the 11 days. So like this, the point is food habits are different, method of preparation is different, method of celebration of festivals, hundreds of things are there. So can you say that okay, you abolish all caste, assuming, not that you can do it. 2000 years it has been attempted, nobody has succeeded. So you abolish. Then what will happen? Mundakam, what will government announce that 5th month everybody should do Mundakam? There will be shortage of barbers first. So all over the country, right? And whether central government should announce or state government should announce, that is another thing. right? So Modi will announce 6th month, then 2 or 3 governments will say, no, we don't agree, 3rd month you have to do it, because they are in the opposition, right? So then there will be chaos actually. It's not, what I want to stress is the sampradayas are totally different. How to bring some amount of, not going to be easy in terms of caste distinction. We have one type of data available to us which are called economic census, which is conducted by National Statistical Organization. Every 5 months they conduct, and a massive exercise it is actually, and it covers a huge portion of our country. It's what one can loosely call phenomenal amount of data is available there. 1998, 2005 and 2013 they have done. 98, 30 million enterprise. Enterprise mean everything, including your roadside Pani Puri fellow up to Mukesh Ambani. Everybody is covered under the definition of enterprise. One is called own account enterprise. That is, if you don't employ any labor, then it is called own account. That is yourself, your wife perhaps, and in business. If you employ even one person paying salary or paying wages to him, it is called establishment, right? So an establishment is an enterprise run by employing at least one member. So it's a very exhaustive survey. 30 million was covered in 98, 42 million was covered in 2005, and 2013 they covered 60 million. This is the coverage, and 17 is going on now. Now in 98, 45% of these enterprises in the country were owned by SC, ST and OBCs. Very important to know. And 2005 it was 51% owned by them, and 2013 60% owned by them. And the 2017 results are not out. It is felt that 70% could be owned by SC, ST and OBCs. So kindly note, it's a very huge percentage of enterprises are owned by SC, ST and OBCs. And within that again OBCs followed by SCs and STs. That all that is details are given in my book. The point we want to stress is a Vaishyavization of India is taking place. Everybody is becoming a businessman. The whole, in the 50s and 60s, government was primarily Vaishya in this country. They were doing business, all public sector undertaking, and you have this HMT, BHEL, BEL, hundreds of these. Then slowly individual groups are doing the, so Vaishyavization is taking place. So Kshatriya role is now given up to government. Hopefully government takes care of the society at large, public at large, using army, police and other things. The private groups are, and a different type of Vaishyavization is taking place. Traditionally large number of groups which are not in business, they are also now getting into business. You have for instance Kamas, Velamas, Reddys, some of these names you might not be even remembering, right, or recognizing, but you will know what is when I say GVK, GMR in terms of airports being constructed. Istanbul airport is also constructed by our people today. So quite a large number of, these are all Andhra Pradesh based, what one can call business groups. Like that, different state, different, and including SC, ST, they also have a what they call Dalit Chamber of Commerce. There are some which have got a phenomenal amount of turnover in business and other thing. Your Kamani tubes, so many can be listed. To the extent the finance minister meets the Dalit Chamber of Commerce before the budget is presented. So every group is now into business. What is the advantage is business provides the upliftment of the entire caste. Kindly distinguish, reservation provides only for that person or his family. That's all, nothing more. He gets a job, but caste in business, the whole caste is getting upgraded. Their business acumen is recognized, and everybody else jumps into that, and that caste is having more power and popularity. What we studied is caste which focused on business have done relatively better than caste which focused on politics, reservation and other thing only. Those which focused on politics only, they got some benefits, they got some state government joining power, but they didn't go beyond a point because your reservation itself is having a limit within the government constraint, and whether one likes it or not, last couple of decades governments are not expanding actually because of financial and other constraint, governments are only shrinking. So, there is not a huge amount of opportunities also available in government chakri or government jobs and other. So, there is a caste which got into other activities like business, they seem to have done relatively much superior, much better. So, the why it is called social capital is provision of initial capital is given by the community or by the caste groups or by family, extended family and other. Very interesting, more than 90% of the financing of initial business is done these sources, not by institutional capital, not by banks or financial institution or anything. More than 90% comes from your own group in terms of extended family or caste groups. Market access we saw actually. For instance, retail shops in Bangalore, some of them are run by Muslims, some of them are run by Bohras, some of them are run by Sunnis, some of them are run by Nadars. Now, when the city is expanding, the new places, the retail shops are started by people who are already employed in these shops actually. I have seen many of the assistants starting new shop, and they say that they have been provided capital by the owner, original owner, and I asked sometime the owner, why are you not starting? He says, I have enough work here itself, and these are youngsters who can be encouraged. So, market access, intricacies of local laws, that is another important thing. How to know the local, particularly if you are doing business in US from India, you have to know lot of local regulations and rules and other things. And you can't hire a American lawyer or a Indian lawyer in US to teach you all this, because it will cost you a fortune. Much better to go to your own community fellow and then he will tell you. In India, of course, knowing the local regulation is primarily, he will tell you whom to bribe how much. The food and adulteration inspector comes, okay, you give him 400, 500 only, not more than that, right. The shops and establishment inspector will come 1000 rupees. These are all have to be told, unless otherwise you may give more also without knowing all these regulations. Kindly note the ease of doing business nowadays everybody is talking about. I am sure many of you would have heard about it. How many have heard about ease of doing business? Not bad. This side not many have heard. No? This side, that side is ease of doing business, this side is unease of doing business or what? Nobody has heard about it. Ease of doing business is how easy it is for you to start and run a business. And more important is it is not for Adanis and Ambanis. That is, they have got a huge department of lawyers and chartered accountants. They can take care in terms. But ease of doing business is much more at the ground level. Some acts like for instance Food and Adulteration Act, it is a draconian act. Fortunately household kitchen is not covered by that. Otherwise they will come into house kitchen also and say that it is not clean and you have to pay another thing. These are all, most of these acts are useful for government employees to make money, that is all. There is, don't think that some food and adulteration due to that everything is perfect or no. They will come and collect one envelope, some 500 rupee, 1000 rupee like that. Shops and Establishment Act, same thing. So, the ease of doing business is more critical in the local levels actually. If I want to set up a shop in Bangalore, 21 regulation I have to follow. If you want to get a gun in Bangalore, I have to follow 4 regulations only. Getting a gun is much easier than setting up a shop. This I give as assignment. I used to be MBA professor and people ask, what is the project assignment? You go and try to set up a shop in Bangalore, in our city. I don't mind giving him a amount also. So then you won't be able to do it in 2 months. If you want to follow all procedures and if you want to be what you may loosely call Gandhian in your approach, I mean the original Gandhi, not because there are too many Gandhis floating around in the country. So if you want to be MK Gandhi, right, it will take you 2.5, 3 years, or you may not be able to set up at all. I am telling you, seriously. You can take it as assignment in your own city. Small shop you want to set up. Not possible. That board which you have to, suppose you want to put a board in your shop, right, Professor Vaidyanathan shop or something, that require corporation approval, and the font is also decided. English font should be 40, so Kannada font should be 60, and night neon separate regulation. Neon, if it is rolling, another, and every regulation, how do I overcome? I just give money, right? And don't tell me there is no corruption in Ahmedabad, I will get a shock, right? Correct? Everywhere, you have to. So all regulation, Shops and Establishment Act says around the shop things should be neat and clean. How many of you have read Shops and Establishment Act? Not even one. This is my assignment to you, to student. Buy that book, Shops and Establishment Act. It is available, and go through that, please. Then only you will know what it is covering. Everybody, not just shops. It covers your Adani, it covers GSPC, it covers all. Just buy that and go through that calmly. Sit. You will be shocked actually. It will be not more than 500 pages, definitely. Shops should be, first of all, surrounding should be clean. How many shops have surrounding? I go to buy bread daily morning to my dog. My dog wants fresh bread, that is another problem. Yesterday's bread it won't take, it will take, go and buy. And it also wants one particular brand only, that is another. These days I tell you, unbelievable, they are very specific about their demands. I go to buy bread and the shop is on this side, I am on this side, in between one open drainage. 15 saal, this is there. That should have been closed, that shop. So, quite number of years before, one cabinet minister told, if you have to follow Shops and Establishment Act in Karnataka, we have to close down all shops. Nobody is, as per, shops should not have rats. Have you seen any shop without? You should have seating arrangement. Array, that fellow cannot stand even. And sunshine. See, all these we copy from European or American and then copy paste and then bring out the regulation. But following is not there, so the inspectors will make money out of that. These corporation people. So recently somebody asked in Delhi, 5 trillion, how do we become professor? I told very simple. They were shocked actually. You have a I have solution for everything. Don't worry, right? Like Chyawanprash I can give you. What is that? I told you take an Excel sheet. Nowadays everybody will know what is an Excel sheet, right? You fill up Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Surat, Delhi, Bombay. All the corporation, right? Last 15 saal. Who are all the corporators, who are all the officials, who are all the contractors. Simple 3 columns, right? Officials, contractors, corporators. Is it difficult, sir? Is it difficult? No, right? You fill it up, right? All the terms and then Excel sheet nicely and freeze all their assets. Confiscate all their assets. 5 trillion. We are 5 trillion. Our GDP will double, I am telling you. You don't believe me? How much has been followed is unbelievable actually. On the other day I was coming in Bangalore on main road. One group of people were doing puja on the road, for the road. I told, ye kya ho raha hai? I have seen people doing puja for the trees, not for the road. I asked who are all, one is that road contractor, one is the corporator. He told this road is our Kamadhenu. This road is our Kamadhenu. Kyun? 15 saal this road only, again and again we are putting this road and collecting money. Every 6 months we are, and his daughter is studying medicine in America, my son is studying law in London, all are due to this road. You got the point. We go on and this road never is made a road. We see to it that every 5 months. Yes. So this is our, and that's why we are doing this puja for the, this, we are expressing our gratitude. So the local level, ease of doing business is most critical, and that is unfortunately we are not focusing at all. It doesn't matter whether it is BJP government or NDA government, UPA, it doesn't really, all the people are not worried. We all sit in Delhi and talk about, ease of doing business in terms of some import-export licenses or how Chinese companies can come here, right? And then how will they come? They have to set up shop here only. Finally, they have to come to the ground level, right, to fill up all this. So this is something, intricacies of local law, unfortunately in India, by and large knows only about this corruption. In spite of that, lot of communities have built their own network. For instance, one of my students came and told a professor, I am very worried, caste should not be there, and I told 100% I am with you. So many people nowadays they want to abolish caste. I told Buddha tried that, don't worry. Lord Buddha I am talking about, he attempted it, and recently Ambedkar also. So many people have, even Gandhi for instance. So let you are one more, right? Come up. And then I told him I will give you 100 rupee. You go Bangalore and get me a bulb, small this LED bulb or, right? Household bulb, right? Which is not sold by a Rajasthani shop. This is the only condition. 100 rupee or 150 rupee, doesn't matter, I will give you more also. I gave him from my purse. Search, but you must get a bulb, not sold by Rajasthan. Simple condition, right? Not a big condition. After then he came back to me and told, sir, sorry, I have failed. You believe me, sir? You can't get a bulb in Bangalore today not sold by a person. Not telling sold by a Tamilian or sold by a, no. The entire electrical retail market is with what they call Mewaris, not Marwaris. One group from Mewar region has come. Over a period of time, they have built up extensive network in terms of sourcing of material, in terms of identifying the appropriate location, then market, access, everything. It's not very easy task. So it helps in terms of, then availability of credit is another thing. You get much easier and faster credit from your own community people, and because of issues of Kandanka, Izzat and so many things, there is a less amount of NPA in the credit, unlike what is got from the financial institution and other. Last but not least is acceptance of failure. The group people, they don't look down upon your failure. They understand that there is a, business means there can be failure, there can be, so there is no set model or something. Sometimes they come forward to help you. Now some UN studies have told something like 800 plus clusters are there in India. Cluster means this economic activity, like Surat is a cluster, diamond cluster. Then you have clock, this Ajanta clock, another thing, Morbi area, there is one cluster. And like that there is a Ludhiana, there is a sports, huge number of clusters. So 800 or so supposed to be, I might have visited something like 200 at least. Almost all these clusters are caste clusters actually. Doesn't mean other castes are excluded, it is a dominant caste which has created the clusters and built on it, and then over a period of time externalities are also done. In terms of colleges, you find that many of the clusters have got in and around engineering and other colleges started by the original entrepreneurs. Sometimes temples, chowdhuries, various schools, various type of activities are also done by the cluster. So these clusters are all actually caste clusters. Till 1987 or 88, all studies of central government, they on the clusters, they never mentioned about caste at all. Something very interesting in India, maybe only in India, caste is always present. Caste is always elephant in the room. Caste is deciding about making which fellow should stand for what constituency. Caste decides about employment. Caste decides about promotion. Caste decides about getting into education institution, everywhere. But it is assumed it doesn't exist. It is felt that no, there is no, when foreign delegates come, no caste at all in India. This is some unbelievably phenomena. So, around the late 80s, there was a report prepared of the leather industry by the Planning Commission. That is the first time they mention about the significant role played by Muslim community in the leather industry. They said that both in terms of processing and other, many of the traditional Hindu groups do not join in this. That is one of the reasons. Like that they mention about Agra, Calcutta, Ambur in Tamil Nadu, various places. Before that there was no, then there began to be more interest and more studies on these caste based clusters. So this is something very interesting, and they are played a very large role in the economic development of the country, these clusters. Again going back to last lecture, huge amount of these non-corporate enterprises are all caste based, are all caste. And one is the traditional caste which we know, Marwaris, Boras and Chettiars and all over India. More important is the newly emerging caste, or rather business people, like agriculturists in large portions of the land who have all entered into businesses, and white collar groups, particularly in IT industry, you find a lot of what are called OC, other communities, they have also entered into on business in terms of. So this is something very interesting is taking place, not just the traditional business people, but so many other type of groups are also entering through the clusters. So basically caste in politics and caste in business we should distinguish. Caste in business is the one we are talking about as a social capital. Caste in politics is obviously divisive, and kindly note, politics have to be divisive in a democratic country. So otherwise how will you get votes? You have to tell one caste that you are oppressed compared to the other caste, so you vote for me. Very simple. If I go and say all castes are same, nobody is going to be interested in me. It is like selling all religions are same. It's good to talk, but not in. So I will get votes provided I divide the caste, most important. But I should be perceived also by the smaller caste that I will not harm them. That is another important thing. Because if there is a good number of Patels in a constituency, other fellow also is going to put Patel only. He is not going to put anybody. So I am a Patel, he is also a Patel. So I should know that he is going to split my vote. So I have to get some vote from others, non-Patels. So I have to do something in order to, but otherwise caste is dividing in politics. But in business caste unites actually, because business wants, by and large they do not believe in, because their market, their suppliers, their customers, belong to all type of caste. And if you announce a Bandh, for instance, many of the small businesses won't be interested at all. For the simple reason they will lose their economic gains for the day and other thing. So business is not very interested in dividing, because they want all type of customers to come and buy from the shop. Otherwise they will not be doing business. So kindly remember, caste in politics divides, but caste in economics unites. This is something very, very important to note. Last is, I am sure most of you will end this with this quote. Most of you would have heard about Vivekananda. How many have heard about Vivekananda? Wow, I am very happy. Many hands are going up. Very good. Very good. Right? Good. Like, See, he went to Chicago, many of you would have heard about it, and he came back to India. When he came back to India, there was a lecture series organized for him. He went, it's called Almora, Colombo to Almora. So, Sri Lanka and other things were all part of larger India in those days. It was not separate or anything. Everywhere, one Hindu Sangam or Hindu Samajam or Hindu society used to, very interesting, almost all the sponsors of his lecture tour were Hindu Sangam or Hindu Samajam, Hindu, the word Hindu was not considered as something not to be used or anything in those days. It was commonly used. Whereas today, I was associated, there is one World Hindu Economic Forum. Some of you might have heard about its name at least, WHEF. One Swami Vijnanananda is associated with that. Incidentally, how many of you have heard about that name at least? World Hindu Economic Forum, not many. One or two have heard about it. Anyhow, why I want to mention this is, to register that there was such a problem. The registration authorities and central government told, sir, remove the word Hindu, we will register it. What do we register then? World Economic Forum, that is fine. Then slowly they told, sir, world also you remove. Then Economic Forum, sir, forum you remove. Then what is economic? What is that? What is there to register? What I am telling is very interesting. Going back 1897, almost all the sponsors of Swami Vivekananda's talk were Hindu Sangam, Hindu Samajam, Hindu society. How much country has moved away, than what it was in 1897. He gives a talk in Colombo. He says, the older I grow, something very interesting, he lived 38 years only, not more than that, right? But he talks about older I grow, very unbelievable. The better I seem to think of these caste and such other time-honored institutions of India. He says, there was a time when I used to think many of them were useless and worthless. And older I grow, more I seem to feel a diffidence in cursing any of them. For each one of them is an embodiment of experience of centuries. Lectures from Colombo to Almora. So he says initially in his younger age, when he was 20s and other thing, he used to be very upset about all these institutions. But he says in 1897, more I think about it, there is some underlying issues and factors in this which are actually important for us. So let us say two important messages from today is, Indian women have enormously contributed to our economic growth, and Indian caste system has enormously contributed to our economic growth. These two have to be recognized and celebrated instead of deriding. And as far as those people who want to abolish caste, I will say best of luck, because something which has been going on for 2000 years, everybody has tried. You are not the first person to try, let me say. But most interesting thing is, people who have reformed or people who have changed it, quite a lot of changes have come about. Let's not, it's not the same one what was there in 1500 years before or something. All those who wanted to change it, reform it, were rooted to the soil. They were part and parcel of extraordinarily religious and sincere people. They succeeded to a large extent than people who are outsiders, or rather people who are Hindus, but people who are what one can call not religious. Or for instance, M.K. Gandhi could significantly impact the system in terms of scheduled caste entering into temples and other things, which could not be done by others who are outside, criticized and threw mud on it. So most important is, if you want to change, you should be rooted to the soil, and you should be rooted so that your words carry significant amount of importance and credibility. If you are outside and want to throw stones, you throw any number of stones, nothing will happen to it. People will smile and walk away. So this is what is the major thing I thought I will mention to you. As I mentioned in the first talk, the 3 books are available on the internet, Amazon. I am sure all of you can access, right? Put my name, you will, one photo also will come, but don't worry, that's a earlier time taken, right? So, it may not be what you are seeing, right? Somebody told, sir, put other people's photo, like Priyanka Chopra or something like that, you put, your book will sell more. I thought that's a very nice idea, right? Except she may file a case or something, right? Why are you putting? Not Priyanka Chopra, I think, is not the current one, right? Current one is who? Tapasvi, Pannu, right? Or Swara Bhaskar, some such thing, right? But it's not there. Mine is only there. You can't avoid that. So kindly buy the books again. Most important. I am not insisting you should read it. Right? Buy. Right? Thank you.